Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. Nice to see all your faces. Let's see. Some people are smiling, some people are waking up. That's okay. Is there anybody from some part of Canada where it's really early?
I think out west it must be like 7:30, right? Or at 8 o'clock. That's early.
There, that's early. I mean, 9 o'clock's early for me. I don't get into work. I roll into work at 10. Must be nice people think, right?
Six
But I
hours.
work later, so I can't start till 10. So, welcome here. Really good work, you guys. During Bridge Week, I was quite happy with all of the efforts that people put forward to generate, lists of people that they want to reach out to, finding ways to be creative in finding contact information, um, distinguishing between who they felt was quality type outreach targets. I know we had a lot of conversations with a lot of people about, hey, I'm really interested in this customer segment or that customer segment. Couple of people even got out of their house and walked over and walked into places and started shaking hands and introducing themselves. That was kind of cool too. So a few people went to some conferences. A lot of good activity during that Bridge Week. Um, well, and some great results too. So I'm hoping that that gives us the kickstart we need so that you're not suffering through the first 2 or 3 weeks waiting for somebody to call you back and schedule an interview. Several of you scheduled interviews, have some coming up. All exciting things. And I think that that's the way we wanted to start. We wanted to start with a little bit of a jump. Think of it like I said, think of it like a sales campaign. We set some goals that are like the standard or perfection. This is the North Star. We all kind of try our best to kind of attain some portion or even achieve those goals. And that takes a little bit of luck. It's not always just skill and perseverance. It does take a little bit of luck too. So good work on that side. Today, as people are arriving here, I'm just giving a little more time. Um, we are going to go into a scrum. That would assume that everybody was checking their checklists, talking to their instructors, checking Slack where I'm trying to let you know that, hey, today, hopefully all of you prepared your slides. So you can give us a little bit of what happened the last couple of weeks to you, a little bit of a report. There'll be some good roundtable discussion. Your facilitators will listen and will impart some wisdom. Collectively, if you're cross-pollinating, the collective wisdom of the group should be very valuable to you. So you'll share some things with each other as well. One thing I want to bring to your attention before we jump into scrums, and then after that, we'll have our workshop with Henry. Henry has prepared himself. He will be engaging. He will be his amazing self as always. All right. One thing I wanted to make sure, just want to share my screen here. Only because of the timeliness of it. So I think, do I have the right thing here? I think so. All right. Zoom gymnastics on the Tuesday morning. Okay, so the science faculty has the Science Innovation Hub, and they are putting on a pitch competition. The prize is $3,000. Well suited to, I think we looked at the people yesterday, Amanda, and I think we picked out 7 or 8 people who are directly related to this. If you look in Slack, I listed all the different departments that you might belong to that you can, as long as you're related to science, you can pitch in this competition. If you really want to be a part of this, but you're not in the science faculty, you are allowed to go in pairs or teams as well. So if you want to join a friend from our class and get that experience, pitching is really, really kind of important. So what the cool thing here is that the pitch happens in April. Everything that we're going to do in this course will be working towards preparing a good final presentation, which is a pitch-like presentation. All you have to do then is move that pitch, adjust it a little bit, and just kind of make it, you can use that pitch specifically for this competition. The gentleman who kind of I interact with, Daniel Heschuk, is also a mentor. He's one of the people who won this pitch after he kind of finished this program, and he did well, and then they hired him. So now he's running that program with some other people. Rosalie, what would you like to say?
Oh, I just have a question. So is this open to all universities or is it like specific?
This is a U of M event. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So okay. I just wanted to know that sometimes universities will invite other universities to participate as well. So I just
You know
wanted to,
what? I believe we can check with Daniel on this afternoon during the pitch. Sorry, during the oh my God,
mentor.
mentor pool
Yep.
Q&A, and
Yep.
we can ask him those questions then, since he's the one who organizes this.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
it's all good. All right, so grab that QR code. I would suggest, even if you're not going to be part of this and you're just kind of thinking maybe, go ahead and apply. And it's the same information that you used early on, telling us about the problem, the solution, and how you're differentiating yourself a little bit. Not a lot of information in the application form. Anybody can fill it out, and then after that, we can talk about it along the way. You can make your mind up whether you're going to pitch or not, or pull out. But for now, because of the time, you have to apply by February 2nd. I would suggest that those people who are even a maybe should apply for this. A great way to pick up some skills that you're going to need moving forward if you're going to be pitching in boardrooms or pitching in front of investors and so on. And also very exciting and fun type of event. I'm also going to invite a lot of you, even some of you who can come into Winnipeg or something like that. We have an in-person event. North Forge puts on a ramp up weekend. It starts on a Friday. It's 56 hours, ends on a Sunday. Friday, we're pitching 60 seconds and then picking people. And then by Sunday night, you're in front of the Dragons, in front of the judges, and that's a $10,000 prize, etc. And there's a second and a third and a fourth prize as well.
Last
So
weekend in
those are good
April.
things. What's that? Yeah, those are good things to join. Good things. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing here. And Amanda, how are we doing on the breakout room front?
We're ready to go. And any last thoughts before we go into the breakout rooms?
Anybody want to ask a question? I mean, that's what the breakout rooms
Oh,
are
is
for.
there had a question? It asks, oh, sorry, the question just went away. It was in the chat. It asks program of study and there's no option for engineering. Can I apply? So I don't know the answer to that.
To this 3K science pitch
Yes.
competition? It's science. I believe, let's ask Daniel, they may allow engineering. If not, he'll have a way to pair you up with someone. You just have to decide what project you're gonna pitch. You can go in with the one that you have in Lab2Market, or if you have something of your own as well, okay? It's not limited to what you're doing with your thesis and stuff like that. But let's leave those questions about the 3K science thing for Daniel, because he'll give us more specific information, and I'm sure that that's apropos during the mentor pool Q&A. So,
Okay, sounds good. I'll open up the rooms for everybody. Enjoy.
So hopefully you had a good weekend, a good break, and we're able to make some great progress in the last 2 weeks. So tons of great feedback, everyone. So good job. So before we start, so today we'll cover customer segment and then market sizing. And I'll try to make it up, try to finish exactly at 12 o'clock to make sure everybody gets a 1 hour lunch. But before we start, just want to keep it open for any question on what was covered during bootcamp. I know we covered quite a bit of material, gave you guys a lot of tools and a lot of pep talk and a lot of energizing push to get you guys going. Hopefully you guys made some great progress, and I know the Tim Hortons gift cards from Dimitri sure help. So any questions about any of the topics? So just give it a couple minutes in case you guys have questions before we jump straight ahead into customer segments. All right, quiet bunch today. So obviously, If you have any questions, post it in the chat. We'll keep the chat active. So we have all the facilitators, Rosalie, Andrea, Dimitri, and Amanda will be monitoring the chat. I can't quite see it in front of me with my screens, but if there's any questions, please facilitators help out and let me know. Okay, all right. So in the pre-program, we talked about customers, value proposition. You know, those are the two building blocks of every business model. In the core program, we'll start delving a little bit more into the individual segments of our business model. And first week, we'll build on the lessons of the pre-program by discussing how to segment. So obviously, this is super important. So side note, my background is marketing. So I've been doing marketing, strategy, and product management now for 20 plus years. So that's my background. So obviously, segmenting your customers is extremely important and valuable to me. And then this is kind of what I do with my team on a day-to-day basis. So nothing starts until you actually define your market. And then secondarily, segment your customers. So agenda, we'll talk briefly about problem solution fit, which is the core of your business model canvas. Into customer segmentation. And then we kind of talked about a little bit about the technology adoption curve. So since all you guys are technologists, so we'll talk a little bit about how people adopt technology and some of the barriers that may limit the adoption. And then stakeholders and persona. And then lastly, we'll finish with the deliverables for the next week. So expectation. So we'll have some high-level methodologies and tools. We'll have some specific applications will be submitted by one-on-one meetings. Don't forget to book times with your mentors. And purpose is for you to become more aware of the many things you'll have to consider throughout the program. Right. Firstly, finding problem solution fit, right? Which is the core of the journey of this program, right? So you have a great technology. And then what you're trying to do is, you know, what is that fit? Is there a need for that technology that you're currently working on? Okay, so customer development is a roadmap. So it really never really ends. So the journey you'll be doing for forever in your journey as an entrepreneur. And then we'll talk a little bit about the customer development process, right? We'll break it down into 4 main phases. First one, the customer discovery, right? We talked about whether you want to test your value proposition. Does it fit with a specific customer segment? So the burning question in customer discovery is to test whether your value proposition fits, right? So you have a technology, you have a customer, and then is there a fit in your value proposition? That's the first step. And then if you go into your business model canvas, to the furthest right, we have the customer segments. And then to the middle of the business model canvas, we have the value proposition. And then essentially between the customer segments and the value proposition is what the fit is, right? So you're trying to find a problem solution fit. So that's what we talked about in the business model canvas. There's the segments and value propositions. And by the way, there are multiple customer segments and there's multiple value propositions. And then ideally, you don't have one value proposition for all customer segments. Your value proposition may be different between your customer segments because they may have different needs. They may have different way of consuming your technology, and they may have different ways to pay for it. Therefore, the value proposition may differ between your customer segments. We also talked about within the business model canvas, right? So on the right, same thing, little exercise we did, I think was exercise 4, if I remember correctly, when we talked about on the right side, the customer profile, right? We talked about the job your customers are trying to accomplish. And then we talked about the pains and the gains that the customers would be experiencing in the construct of doing their jobs. And on the left side, it's your value map, right? Which is your product. So on the furthest right, definition of your products and then the key features of the product. And then the bottom right of that value map, you can see the pain relievers that your product would be delivering. And then on the top would be the gain creators yet your product would be delivering to the customer. And then if that matches neatly, this is where there's a fit, right? So essentially, On the right, you describe from the product, from the customer standpoint, right? So I've seen too many people trying to match exactly their product and the customer. So that's not the exercise. The exercise is put yourself in the shoes of your customers, define what they're trying to do, pains and gains, and then you describe your product, pain relievers and gain creators. And then if it matches neatly, that's where we actually see the fit. So how do you get the fit? You test the business model and develop a repeatable sales process, right? So that's the key. You want to keep testing to make sure that you validate that your product, there's a product problem solution fit. That's what you're trying to go after, right? So this is part of the discovery. All the interviews you're conducting, it really helps you validate that you actually, your technology solve an actual problem for your customers. That's your goal. That's what we're trying to do. Validating that your product meets the needs of your customers, and then you have a problem solution fit. Okay, so everything starts with the customer, right? So you define your market. So the next step is get into a little bit more details about your customers. So starts with the customer. Customer segment. We talked about that a little bit in the pre-program. It's really the start of your customer journey. So questions you'll need to answer for find problem solution fit. Who's your target customer? What are they trying to accomplish, right? So that's part of the customer job. What is their problem? And then ideally identify the severity of their pains. For what gains would they be willing to pay? It's a really important question, right? So yes, it's one thing to identify gains, but would they be willing to actually pay for that gain? Does your solution solve their problem? Does your solution bring additional value to their lives? So that's the customer side. Identifying what they're trying to do, identifying their pains, and then what gains would they be willing to pay for, or that would actually enlighten their day or help them do their jobs a little bit better. So now let's jump into customer segmentation. So, right, so the steps. I'm going to keep repeating because it's really important, right? So you define your market, identify your customers, and then you actually segment your customers, because obviously not all customers are the same. They're not all doing the same thing. They're not trying to solve all the same problems. So you do need to segment your customers and then have a better understanding of each one of your customer segments separately. Quick aside, no one can steal your marketing plan if you actually don't have a marketing plan. But marketing plan is extremely important. Every company, as they launch a new product, they actually do have a marketing plan. So as I mentioned, first step is to define your market, right? So what is a market? It's a set of actual or potential customers for a given set of product or service. So you can't do anything else if you can't define your market, right? So it's extremely important to define what that is. A lot of people ask me, well, Henry, how do you define a market? It's not that complicated, right? So make it a super easy example, right? So take hockey. I guess we're in Canada. Usually I use football, but I guess we're in Canada. We'll take hockey, right? Your market would be the rink, right? That's where you find hockey players, you find hockey coaches, and you find fans. So that would be a hockey market, right? So define where they are, where are all those players in that market, and who are the stakeholders, who are all the people that actually contribute to that market. So that's really a definition of a market. There's many other ways to define market, which we'll get to in a second, but that's the first step. What is my market? Is it airplanes? Is it airlines? Or is it landing gear of airplanes, right? So without that definition, everything falls apart. So you have to be clear, what market am I playing in? So obviously, they have a common set of characteristics, needs or wants, and they reference each other when making a buying decision, right? So they're all playing a part in either consuming, delivering, impacting, making a decision. of consuming a set of goods and services. That's the first step. Define the market. Strictly important. And you get to define that market, right? So if I'm an airline, obviously I define it as airline. If I'm an airplane manufacturer, I define it separately. So you define what market you are playing into. So next set, customers, right? So who are the customers within that market? So some of those customers will purchase a given product or service, buying them for similar reason, and they also may share similar characteristics. Customers are a set of actual or potential customers for a given set of products or services. And the customer segments are the different groups of people or organizations you aim to reach and serve, right? So we talked about that in the pre-program, but now we're going to go a little bit more details into customers and customer segments. So before we define that, quick definition to separate what is a customer segment versus market. Market is everyone you can provide value to, right? So that's how you define your market. And then a customer segment is a segment of your market that is grouped based on common characteristics. So that's extremely important, right? So a segment, a group of people or customers that share similar characteristics. And then you get to define what those characteristics are. So example of characteristics could be geographic. You can define a physical location. So you define Winnipeg, for example, would be a way of segmenting, right? You can segment by geography. Could be the prairies, the Maritimes, and East Coast could be a way of defining a common set of characteristics. Could be demographic. You can actually segment customers by age, gender, income, occupation, education, whatever other demographic characteristics you can identify. You can do it by behavioral. So it's characterized by their actions and behavior, either by usage level, purchasing pattern, loyalty. And lastly is psychographic. So that's characterized by their motivation. So now it can actually be split by personality, values, attitudes, interests, and lifestyle. And the best way, which is the preferred way to do segmentation, is psychographic. Now that's the most difficult one to do, but it's the best way because this way, that means people respond similarly by external stimuli. Geographic, the reason geographic is easy, right? So we can find people's address. So they live in Winnipeg, therefore that's my target market. But that's, although it's the easiest one, it's actually the least useful one because within Winnipeg, we have different behaviors. So ideally, if you can afford it, and that's expensive. So last time I did a segmentation exercise, I spent $600,000 to do it. So it was a global segmentation exercise that we did for cardiac surgeons and interventional cardiologists, but it was $600,000. So I doubt most people, especially startups, can afford $600,000 to segment their market. But ideally, that's kind of how you want to do it, because this way you know how people respond, and then the way they respond to external stimuli, either to marketing campaigns or to promotions, etc. Those are the four means of segmenting. And then obviously, easiest one is geographic and demographic, but the best one is psychographic. Any question on that? Just want to pause there quickly before we move to the next step, right? So we talked about 3 steps, right? Market, define your market. And then after that, you identify your customers and then create customer segments to help you better understand your market. Yes, Mohammed.
Yes, Henry. So would you suggest to make a mix between all of these characteristics?
So the reason you don't want to do that, because ideally when you do segments, so there's 2 key characteristics of a great segmentation. And by the way, most segmentations come up with 5 segments. That's just something we decided as marketers. There are 5 segments. So the reason you want to do that is because each customer has to belong to one segment, right? So if you mix the segmentation method, then you have people that may fit into different segments, and then that doesn't help, right? So the segments have to be homogeneous, meaning people within the segment respond similarly. And then each segment have to be heterogeneous, meaning one person can't naturally fit into multiple segments. So that's why you don't want to mix, because now one customer may fit into multiple segments. And then if that's the case, then your segmentation method is actually invalid. And then it doesn't help you understand, right? Because if I belong into 4 segments, how do you understand my behavior and then how that would respond to either a marketing campaign or to a product? So you want to pick a segmentation methodology and then stick to it going forward to then better understand how you want to approach each and every customer. That makes sense?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other questions? So yeah, so a great segmentation means within the segment, it's homogeneous. And then across segments, it's heterogeneous, meaning one person can't fit into multiple segments, ideally.
Henry, can I ask a question?
Yep.
I was just thinking sometimes, behavior and motivations can kind of get mixed up. How would you clarify? What's your advice on that between the behavior and psychographic?
Yeah, so behavior means the way I behave, right? Let's say if I'm aggressive or if I'm tend to be more reserved. So that's kind of how I treat behavior. Psychographics to me is motivations, right? So yes, sometimes behavior plays a part into motivation, but if I'm a profit motive person, then my behavior does not really impact my profit motive approach. So that's why when we say psychographics is really the motivations that drive your decisions. So yes, behavior plays a part of it, but the behavior part is strictly behavior, while psychographic is all the things that plays a part into your motivations. So if I make a decision, let's say if I'm a general manager, my behavior, my motivations are extremely different than a individual contributor within a company. So that's why we keep the two separate, because one is really how you behave, the other one is motivation. So that's a key difference between those two methodologies. Somebody had a question, took their hands off?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, but isn't loyalty a part of personality, or the purchasing pattern is governed by someone's values or attitudes or interests?
Sorry, gonna have to speak up a little bit. I think I missed half that question, unfortunately. Try again.
Okay, so I'm saying that isn't loyalty a part of someone's personality, or the purchasing pattern is a part of attitudes or interests of the customers?
I didn't get that question. Did somebody understand the question?
I'm just the same as Andrew asked, the difference between behavioral and psychographic. Can you hear me?
Okay, so I think if it's similar to Andrew's question, so yes, behavior contributes to the makeup of a person, but the best way I could describe that would be by an example. So let's take an example to do what I did when I was at Medtronic. So we obviously hypothesized that cardiac surgeons, that we believe that their motivations was mostly for either safety or based on their training. And we believe that we hypothesize that the interventional cardiologists are more aggressive in their approach to caring for patients. So we assume that one specialty would be more apt to adopt the technology. And what we found out was that actually was not true, right? So the behavior we assume is that there's a specialty that's more aggressive than surgeon who tend to be more on their training. They're more conservative by specific behavior. So when we introduced the new technology, we realized that that was not a factor of their adoption. what we found out from effective adoption was that where they worked and their research background, right? So this is an example of a behavior did not drive the adoption pattern. What we found out was that if they were willing to advance healthcare, if they were into a research-based institution, that was a bigger factor to their motivation, right? So that's a key difference, is that if you look deeper, is that what drives the decisions to adopt. So we're not saying that behavior does not play a part, but we're saying what are the factors that drive adoption, right? So these things is what we're trying to do for either responding to marketing campaign, responding to new products, new technology, and adoption. So that's what drives, right? So we talk about factors that drive the decision. And then the key difference is that behavior says the behavior mostly drives adoption. And in psychographics, it says combination of personality, behavior, values, attitudes, interests, lifestyle, where you practice, where you were trained, are more impactful in impacting buying patterns. Okay, so that's a key difference, is that we're combining many traits that helps make us a decision, their buying pattern. And, you know, like I said, it's not 100% accurate, right? So if you look into all the factors and it comes up with a formula, right? So at the end of the day, once you complete a segmentation exercise, it gives you a formula and then you enter. So let's say take Andrea, you say, okay, she's a researcher, 1. She's Winnipeg, 1, right? So you add all those factors up and then you try to make an inference. Does that mean she belongs into a predefined set of segments that makes a decision on what's the likelihood of response to a marketing campaign? And when I say marketing campaign, it's not just a commercial, right? It's really the product, it's the promotion, it's all the factors associated with the 5 Ps that drives a decision from somebody. So I would say this is something that mostly marketers do. And then, but it gives you some insights into how people think, and then how you're actually going to create programs to help those people make a decision. Yes, Rosalie.
I sort of question comment, because one of the things that I've noticed when teams are going out and doing their interviews is they've already sometimes have a preset idea that their product is going to fit a certain need. And they forget that this is discovery as opposed to now I'm trying to sell. What kind of advice can you kind of give people to kind of clarify what they're doing in these early stages around discovery versus selling, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So everything starts with an hypothesis, right? Same thing as research. So you assume that those segments are correct. You assume that it's either geographic or consumption pattern, whatever methodologies you've assumed. And then as discovery, you validate, right? So if you assume that people living in the prairies are X, and then you interview people in the prairies, you interview people from the West Coast, people from the East Coast, and you realize that's not true, then you actually make modifications. So today, for this journey, you make an hypothesis, and then you validate. So through your interviews, you'll discover if it's true or not, right? So give another example. Say somebody at a company assumed that military, so I can't remember whose program on my team, but assume that military was different compared to different types of companies. So that's an assumption. You make an assumption, and then through discovery, you realize that it's the same. They buy the same product, they have the same needs, and they try to do the same jobs. So then that hypothesis is now becoming invalid, and then suddenly you don't have to create different offer, different products, different messages, different plans or programs for those 2 teams, right? Because at the core, if you're going to segment, you make an assumption that they respond differently and their needs are slightly different. And then if that hypothesis is proven invalid, then actually you can combine them and you can assume that the same product, price, promotion is similar across those various people you first assume would be different. I know going a little deeper into how marketers think, but the reason you segment, because you're assuming that the product, the promotion, the price, and the place is different. If it's not, then it's the same. Okay, so that's the key. So, and also in my language, it's important, my bias, I say offer instead of a product, because from us marketers, product is one piece of the 5P, right? So when we go to customers, there's 5P, right? So same product would have different price based on you've defined a segment that is different. So perfect example, and I have an example on that a little bit later on, a drill. So when I went to my first open heart surgery, the doctor had a drill to cut the breastbone, and I looked at it, I'm like, that looks exactly like the one I have at home. Now, the price of the one you buy at Home Depot is $30, and that drill that the doctor uses is over $1,000. Now, from the layman's perspective, it's the same product, yet the price is vastly different, right? So we've identified that the safety factor, the handling, and everything else is vastly different for a cardiac surgeon. Therefore, the price is vastly different, right? So same product does the same thing, but the pricing is different. So I say offer because I separate promotion price from the actual product itself. So that's why you segment, because now suddenly you've identified different factors that demand a different approach. If it's the same approach, not different segments. Okay, so that's the key part. I know I talked about heterogeneity, but also if it's the same product, price, promotion, then they're not different segments.
Henry, sorry, you got me curious. What are those 5 Ps?
Oh, 5Ps, I know. I
Another
always
conversation.
want to say 4. Somebody invented the 5th one. I'm not on board with it yet, so I use a 4P really, right? So product, price, promotion, and place. So they're the main 4. The 5th one, I ignore it. It's not even worth mentioning. So think about product. Obviously, we know what product is. Promotion, right? So promotion talks about buying patterns. You can have buy one, get one free. If you buy 500, it's a lower price, blah, blah, blah. So promotion. Place, where you sell it. Now I forgot the 4th one. I can't remember which 3 I said. Price. Oh yeah, product. Price, product, price, promotion, place. So those are the main 4 Ps on what I call an offer. Thank you, Dimitri. Right, we gotta go. We gotta keep going. All right. Go to exercise 1. So this is an actual real product that I worked on. So the product, so it's an X-ray-based machine to test the level of bone loss in seniors. So the product is to be installed in imaging system at hospitals, / imaging centers, or in physician's office, right? So if you think about where you see your primary doctor, right? So your family medicine, so that's what we call physician's offices, or it can be in a hospitals / imaging centers. In teams of 4, so we have 2 teams of 3, take 5 minutes. So what I want you guys to do is discuss the following. Name someone to report back for the whole group. I want you guys to identify customer segmentation hypotheses. So how would you segment? And then let's keep it to Canada, because it gets a little bit more complicated if you add different countries, because the way care is delivered is different. So I want you guys to think about 3 segments, right? So this product could be installed in hospitals / imaging centers, or it could be by itself in your physician's offices. So I want you guys to scratch your heads, take 5 minutes, come up with some segmentation hypotheses, and then what would be 3 segments you can think of, right? So all of Canada. So obviously we have hospitals, we have physician's offices, we have clinics. So I want you guys to come up with what 3 segments you would identify, and then explain to the rest of us why you pick up those 3 segments.
Okay, I'll open up the breakout rooms.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Okay.
Oh, Hashir's giving you the 4 Ps.
I know, this is helping me solve my problem. This is
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. All right, is everybody back, Amanda?
Yep, everybody's back. Good to
All
go.
right, welcome back. So yes, so I know this is a little hard, and I know it's not your product, but the reason I picked this one because this one, nobody knows about it, and it forces people to think, how would they segment their various customers? And of course, we're all users of healthcare, so we should have some knowledge. So let's pick. Anybody wants to start and then share what the 3 segments were and then what they discovered? Mohammed, please go ahead.
On behalf of my beloved group, uh, so we think it would be more appropriate to put it in the imaging centers instead of the physician office because of multiple reasons. It's more expensive. It's a high-end machine. We needed some X-ray protection room, some maintenance guys or like technicians who need to maintain this machine. All of these reasons makes us prefer to put it in the imaging center. The segments, like a place where seniors live or near seniors live. Military base, maybe because you have some injuries, so you can't transfer those patients to outside of the base. I forgot the third, sorry.
It's actually pretty good. Feels like you guys cheated at somebody who knew something about healthcare, but no, it's not bad at all. So one segment was imaging centers near seniors. The next one is the military hospitals and clinics. And then the third one, I can't remember, but yeah, that's actually good actually hypothesis to how to segment those imaging centers. No, good job. All right, Marianne, you want to go next?
Yeah, we also one of our customer segments is the imaging centers, athlete centers, also the disability healthcare centers, because athletes, especially soccer games and football gamers, they have a lot of injuries in their leg. So it's like taking images without harming the leg with any movement. And for disability peoples, because we don't need to have any burden for them to move their bodies in any like way that it might hurt them or like put them in a situation that might hurt their feelings. So I guess these are the 3 segments that we came up with.
That's pretty good. That's actually really good. Like I said, there's no right or wrong answer. It's really something to help guide the teams, right? So good job. Hashir, want to go next?
Yeah, actually Jerry's also raised his hand. He's from my team, so I think he can go forward.
Okay, yeah, I took some notes from our conversation. So the first segment, we're talking about this product provide a cheaper and easier solution for senior homes to monitor seniors' bone density. And so is that? Okay, so second, this product is also a solution for home health provider. So it looks like it's small, so it's portable. So it might be beneficial for a home health provider to provide a mobile X-ray that would be able to bring the device to seniors' home when they're not able to traveling. So easier and portable solution for that. And then lastly, it's a little different that came up. It's good for insurance companies to have that to verify people's injury and therefore to give them a fair and trustworthy in-house estimation for insurance provider.
That's actually really good. Really, really good. You see, 3 teams, 3 different sets of segments. Like I said, there's no one right way of segmenting, but the reason you want to segment, which we'll jump to the next slide quickly here, is for those reasons, right? So it helps you understand your market, right? So what I like about the last team is that you've gone beyond the imaging center / physician's office and then actually hypothesize that home health care, that'll be a great value, right? So it really helps you understand your market and the customers. And then the 3 last examples, 3 completely different buying behavior, 3 completely different the way you provide the product and what problems they're solving, right? So insurance, completely different problem they're trying to solve compared to home healthcare. So that's why you segment. It helps you understand your market and the customers. And also, you can't categorize all customers, right? So that's if you have a market of let's say imaging centers globally, for example, there's 60,000 imaging centers. You can't think of 60,000 customers separately. So you do need to group them into like-minded groups to help you can make decisions, understand their needs, pains, gains, etc. And once you define those segments, you do need to size them so that you can actually prioritize those segments, right? Because you can't, and we'll cover that a little bit later, you can't go after the whole market. You're going to have to pick and choose. So if you segment, it helps you understand the market. Once you size and define them, it helps you prioritize and then helps you focus. So that's why you segment. Okay? Makes sense, everyone? Any last question before we move to next topic? All right, super. Okay, Marvin Lee, go ahead.
Mike, as you explained here, different groups have different opinions, but how we can be sure about, the total our customer segments? Because, for example, we can start and cover one part, so we may miss and lose some opportunities in other sites. So is there any way to, for example, evaluate different parts or it's just talking with customers or?
Yes.
Yeah.
You answered the question, talking to customers. So you make an hypothesis, and you need to validate it. And then if you have an hypothesis on segments, you want to make sure you talk to people from those segments, right? So if you have 4 segments and you only talk to 1, that tells you you're missing significant amount of customer validation, right? So that's why you hypothesize and you test. You need to test with customers. Yes, go ahead, Dimitri.
So early on, you don't want to get too hung up on getting to your best customer segments. I mean, you can attempt that, and what ends up happening is if you're able to reach them, then good. Then go after those most important customer segments that you want to reach out to. But if it's proves to be a little more difficult earlier on, because again, you're not established, you're coming in, you're an unknown, people are apprehensive and stuff like that. All sorts of reasons why we struggle with the CRM outreach part is we don't always get to talk to everybody we want to talk to. I wouldn't hesitate to talk to customer segments that you can actually reach more easily. And the goal is that you want to learn from those early enthusiasts, the ones that want to talk to you first. So I wouldn't get hung up on, okay, I have 6 customer segments I want to reach. 3 of them are really important to me. And if you're not reaching the 3 that are important to you, then keep talking to the other ones and keep asking them for inroads to talking to the ones you really want to talk to, right? So it's kind of it's kind of growing your network and then using that influence that they have to get to the people you want to talk to and so on. Hopefully I didn't throw a tangent in there, Henry, but go ahead.
No, absolutely. All right. Technology adoption. So I can tell you if you're a laggard based on the amount of crypto you have, and not just the Bitcoin, also the meme ones. So we'll talk quickly about technology adoption curve. There's a lot of slides, but like I said, I'll give you the gist into this science behind the technology adoption curve. And then I know a lot of people confuse that with the segment. It's not. It's just a different way of looking into what types of groups and then how they adopt technology. So there's 5 of them. There's the innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and then laggards, right? So we'll talk a little bit quickly about all 5 of them. And then, like I said, what defines them. So this is the technology adoption curve. And so it really separates into 5 communities. There's the innovators, and they make up 2.5% of the total population. There's the early adopters. They make up 13.5% of the population. And then after that, you have the early majorities, which makes up 34%, late majority, 34%, and then laggards at 16%. And they split it into the early adopters, early market. And then what separates them is the chasm. So we'll explain what the chasm is. And then we have the mainstream market. The key thing to start right up front, right? So a lot of people focus on late majority and laggards. But what I tell people as a marketer, if you focus on those 3 groups here, they make up 50% of the total population. And what's required to get that 50% population to adopt is significantly less than late majority and laggards. So I would say, why would you want to focus on late majority and laggards when you have 50% of the market that requires a lot less to adopt? And obviously, innovators and early adopters don't need a whole lot to adopt, right? So this is what they call the technology adoption curve. It split the total population into groups. And then we'll talk a little bit about what's an innovator, what's an early adopter, what's an early majority, and more specifically, what do they need to adopt, right? So that's the key. What is needed for them to adopt, right? So adopt new technology. They're not segments because they might still never buy for whatever reason, but it's really adopting new technology. So innovators, they are the tech enthusiasts. They pursue new technology products aggressively. They make a technology purchase simply to explore new devices' properties. Only a few innovators in any given market segment, right? So they make up 2.5%. The key thing is they self-adopt. These people, in my line of work, they're the people working with the companies, right? So I have physicians on my panel, and they are aggressively working to help advance therapies and products, or they're the ones who came up with the ideas, right? So they're tech enthusiasts. They don't need anything to adopt. They're most interested with, oh my God, this is cool and new, I want it. That's an innovator. No need to be convinced to adopt. Next group, the early adopters, right? So they're not technologists per se. They do have the insight to match an emerging tech to a strategic opportunity. They do look for a high ROI, and they're willing to take on risk, right? So innovators, self-adopt, they just love the technology for the technology itself. The early adopters, they're kind of the visionaries, right? So they see the benefit of that technology, and they're willing to take on risk, right? So two key paradigms. Any questions so far? Those are the 2 main people to, if you have a new breakthrough technology, these are the individuals to work with because they're going to help you perfect the technology, the therapy, the product, right? So innovators love the technology. Early adopters, they see the benefit, they understand the risk, they're willing to work with you to improve it. And they, like I said, they self-adopt. early majority, they're driven by a strong sense of practicality, right? So they want to be convinced. They don't want to, they're not buying, they're not adopting the technology because it's, the crave, right? So they're not following the herd. They want to see practical reason to adopt. They want to see an improvement, and they want to see well-established references before investing substantially. And the references, guess who the references are? The early adopters. So the early majority, they do need the early adopters in order to invest, right? So they will not be the first. They want to see some others. They want to see some proof point, and they want to see clear reason to change. So that's the key difference between those three subgroups. And those three, they make up 50% of the total population. And if you have a great justification or if you have a great proof point with technology, these 50% will adopt. So that's why I tell people, focus on these three because they're going to help you make the technology better. They see the justification and the proof points of the technology, they will adopt. They don't need a whole lot of convincing to adopt. Clear so far? Right. Late majority, they're not comfortable with their ability to handle technology product. They want to wait until it's become an established standard, right? So they do need a majority of people to have adopted it, and they want pre-assembled packages, right? So they're not willing to take on risk just for the sake of taking on risk. So they are typically risk averse by nature, and they typically don't understand the technology area very well and are likely to rely on trusted advisors, right? So, which is why in my line of work, I have physicians selling my product, right? So even though I'm sales and marketing, physicians listen to physicians, not to the idiot marketer. So I have a physician to help convince late majority to adopt new products. And lastly, laggards. I don't think we need to say a whole lot about that. They do want this to maintain the status quo. They're skeptical about the benefits of your solution. They tend to be the contrarian. They take contrarian position. They'll try sometimes to block purchase of new technology. And most oftentimes, laggards are not customers. They can be formidable opposition to your early adoption. So the message is you don't want to completely ignore them because they might be roadblock into the late majority and even sometimes the early majority to adopt, but you don't try to actively sell to them, but you try to mitigate their impact on the others, okay? So references, who reference each other when making a buying decision, right? So innovators, they help educate the early adopters. The early adopters, once satisfied, they provide good reference for the early majority. And then the early majority provide the bulk of the revenue, market leadership, the product become more reliable, cheaper, more accepted, and then they can help convince late majority, right? So we don't see laggards in here because they typically will not adopt. So we focus on those four subgroups. So the chasm, what is a chasm? So obviously you can see it's the break between innovators, early adopters, and early majority and the late majority. The chasm is the mainstream market wants very little risk, right? So it's a risk chasm. They want to buy from market leaders. So if you're not a market, if you only have innovators and early adopters, you're clearly not a market leader. And they want the whole product to be 100% solution of their problem. And they won't buy innovative product services until they are well established, right? So that's what we call the chasm. So these early majority wants to see subgroups who have adopted already, those two subgroups. They want to see the product well established. So the early adopters will help you establish and perfect the product. And they want to see it well established. They want to see these groups adopted and perfecting it before they adopt. So that's what the chasm is, right? So the level of proof, evidence, etc., for them to adopt is really necessary here, not for these two subgroups. But that's what the chasm is. Oops. We spent a lot of time on that. Don't want to spend too much time on it, but just want to make sure people understand that the 5 subgroups is really about technology adoption, how those 5 groups are, and what's the difference between them, and then what do they need to adopt. Any questions? No questions? Clear enough? If I ask somebody about who's an innovator, who's an early majority, people would understand that?
So
I-
Henry, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So I think it's also, and I've seen this, where people look to be risk takers in one area of their life, but will be very conservative in other areas of their life. So behaviorally, there is a disconnect. Can you speak to that? Like why might somebody be completely conservative in a tech situation, for example, and yet maybe engage in risky behavior related to drinking or partying or things like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Except this is not a segmentation, right? So this plays a part into how they segment themselves, but we are different, humans are complicated. So we're not the same everywhere, right? So we do see that people behave differently at home vis-a-vis at work. We've seen, for example, companies where financial executives are extremely risky in making decision about, what instruments to buy, what risk profile they find acceptable, but at home, they're ultimately very conservative. So the technology adoption curve is about adopting technology, and then what part of technology, and then people would behave differently. So which is why it's extremely important to do segmentation, and then to probe those questions to potential customers, because they'll let you know, and then they'll put barriers, right? So as you interview them, you'll see and you'll hear some comments that might indicate if they are, innovators, early majority, early adopters, etc. So because one person is an innovator into, let's say, new therapy, that doesn't mean that they'll be innovators into something different, right? So sometimes people's risk profiles will differ. So this is not an absolute. This is for a specific technology. People will behave differently based on their motivation.
Perfect,
The
thanks.
motivation will drive that. And they say, because we've
Well,
seen
Henry.
sometimes, right? So another example, we see a interventional cardiologist extremely aggressive, extreme about adopting new technologies, and then he gets promoted to be chief medical officer, and suddenly the way he thinks is different, because now he's responsible for everybody's outcomes, right? So if I think I'm great and have great outcomes, I tend to be more aggressive. But now suddenly, if I'm responsible for a staff that I have, interns, fellows, etc., and then obviously attending physician, I may be behaving differently because now suddenly my responsibility is different, right? So that's why psychographic is important, because your role and your tenure and your experience plays a part into where you belong in the segment. Somebody had their hand raised and took it out.
Sorry. I have a question about the timeline. Can you put like this curve into the perspective of time?
Great question. So yes, innovators adopt faster than obviously late majority. But what we've observed, and I have a slide, I took it out, I'll put it back in, is that the timelines differ, right? So dishwashers, the moving into late majority happened in years. Cell phones happened in years. Microwave took decades. So each technology has a different timeline as it progresses within those subgroups, right? So for some reason, dishwashers and washing machines, the adoption went way faster than microwave for some reason. And obviously cell phones, super aggressive adoption curve. So yes, there is a time dimensions to it, yes, but the times to reach this key part of the early majority differs across technology. Okay, so now how do you find early adopters? Obviously through interviews, right? So you can actually catch, if you pay attention to what they say, you can actually catch, the things they say that can actually help you put them into different subgroups, right? If they have a big business problems that they're really eager to solve, that's an early adopter. If they're aware of the problem that they have, if they're actively searching for a solution, they are early adopters. If they came up with their own DIY, that's an early adopter. And if they actually have budget set aside to solve the problem, that's an early adopter, right? So there's some key things you can identify to help bucket people into subgroups, right? Because if you have a new technology, that especially if it's breakthrough, you do need to find those early adopters, because without early adopters, you'll not penetrate the rest of the market, right? So take electric vehicles, for example, same thing. We found a bunch of, very aggressive early adopters. There's a lot of people still sitting on the sideline, right? So we still see the early majority is not penetrated into electric vehicle. Tons of reason why. It's not the intent of this course, but there's a reason that electric vehicles still sits into the early majority bucket and not the late majority yet. All right, let me pause for now. So we covered defining a market, segmenting your customers, and then we went over how people adopt technology and what the 5 subgroups as part of technology adoption. Any quick question before we move to persona? All right, no hands raised. Let's move. So I asked my team, what's a customer persona we should seek for a marketing campaign? I will pick the winner. So we talked about that. We just talked about briefly, you need to talk to enough potential customers to differentiate between the different segments and also their which profile they are in the adoption curve. The best way to segment customers is using psychographics. So understand their values, attitudes, and behavior. We covered that as well. And then next step is really to define customer persona, right? So you have your market, you segmented your market. So the next step is, so think about it, right? So we have a market, which is human-like, and then you went to customer segmentation, right? So let's say you picked Winnipeg. That's not a person, right? So as you are depersonifying people, you need to get back to a customer. And that's a concept we'll call a customer persona, right? So what is that profile? What is that role? Somebody within that segment. So that's what customer persona is. So we'll just fly over it very, very quickly. So it's a fictional representation of a customer segment, or it's a generalization of the needs, behaviors, etc. It's also based on customer discovery interviews. And then you create one for each customer segment. And you can even have a negative persona. So that's what a persona is. So it's a fictional person, right? So you've gone for segment, which is not a person, and then you're creating a person that can actually fit that segment for you. So some things you can include in the persona could be a day in the life, the role, how they experience things, how they solve it, obviously demographics, how they wish it could be, where they look for solutions, how they make decision-related preferences and taste. We'll fly quickly about the steps to creating a persona. Obviously, you need a name, an actual human name, right? So in my segmentation that I did, granted, it was 14 years ago now. So one of the segments was oh, should I can't remember now. So we had, descriptive names into what the segments were, but they were not individuals. So then you go into customer persona, you actually create an actual individual, right? So first step is a name, and then background, demographics, some key identifiers you may want to add if they're important, right? So if they're important, for this example, this person let's pretend that person is Sally. head of human resources, working in the same company for 10 years, age 30 to 45, dual income. And these things, are you add them if they're important, right? So if it's something that's going to drive the way that person thinks, you add them. Identifiers, optional, right? So you can add calm the meter, probably as an assistant, etc. You can add more goals, keep employees happy, challenges, get everything done with a small staff. And then what can we do? Make it easy to manage all employee data in one place. So these are things you can add about that persona as you're creating that persona. And then lastly, quotes, common objections, right? So that's a persona. So you just create a fictional person within that segment, and then you give as many descriptors as you feel necessary and important for that segment. So let's do one more exercise. We'll keep it short. So let's do 3 minutes, and then we'll do 5 for the second portion. So for 3 minutes, develop a persona for your ideal customer. So that's an individual exercise. So you guys have the segments defined, because I looked at all your workbook. Every single one of you has segments defined. So I want you guys to take 3 minutes and define one persona from that for one of the segments, as we mentioned, right? Background, demographics, identifiers, goals, challenges. What can we do for that person, and common objections for that person? Take 3 minutes individually, write it down, get some pen to paper, and create your first persona. I'll make up time. Let's see.
And they are all back now.
All right, excellent. All right. So how did that go? Anybody wants to
It was
share?
good.
It was good?
Yeah, I was paired with Hashir. We identified the ideal customers for our product, and yeah, it was great to see, like, the small components, how things affect the decision making process for those to buy or not to buy our product.
Excellent. Wonderful. All right. So we got to move forward, guys. I'm a little bit behind. So before I jump off, sorry, Mohammed Ali, you had a question. Go ahead.
Yes, my question is that we have some personas in our customer segments, but I think isn't it helpful that after we talked with and have some interviews with customers, we find out some similarities or some in common goals or some behaviors, and then we can have more personas after, for example, a while. So this persona part can be changed during our project.
Absolutely. Everything could be changed after the project, right? So what we're asking you guys to do is you start with an hypothesis, right? Because if you don't have an hypothesis, then you can't create questions. So you have to assume that this is a problem, and then you test if your assumption is correct, right? So I always tell people, don't ask questions to ask questions. Ask questions to validate your understanding, right? So either the market, about the pricing, about anything, but you have to start with an hypothesis that you're trying to prove or disprove. So yes, you're correct that the segments, the personas, they will change as you get more understanding of your customers, but you need to start with something, and then it can help you validate with the interviews. So absolutely, it will change. It better change because this is discovery, so it better change because you'll learn more as you go along. Okay, so before I jump off to stakeholders, which will be really, really quick, Rosalie actually brought an interesting point about Pepsi, which reminded me of a great, fantastic segmentation exercise that Coke did. So for those who go to Europe, you'll realize that there really isn't Diet Coke, right? They call it something else. And then even now we have Pepsi, Coke Max, whatever the term is. So this is really based on discovery, right? So some men, we know why they created Pepsi Max. It's segmentation of those manly men who didn't like the concept of diet. So this is segmentation and then discovery. exercise, right? So they created a beverage which is essentially the same, but because people did not respond to diet, so they created something different. So this is a great exercise of segmentation, right? So if you look at Coke, right? So there's Coke, Coke Zero, let's say there's Coke Zero, Diet Coke, all those different Coke serve a different segment of the population, right? I'm a Diet Coke guy, been a Diet Coke forever, but some people are Pepsi Max, Coke Zero. So that's an example of segmentation, right? So they've identified different segments, responds differently. So the name of the product is sometimes as important of the actual product itself. So it was a great example that Rosalie had mentioned because she sold Pepsi. I'm not a Pepsi guy. Sorry, Rosalie. So very quickly, we'll go through that very quickly since we're a little bit behind. Obviously, there are different stakeholders involved in the buying process, right? So we just need to be able to identify and have mitigation strategies for all those different people. So I'll just go very quickly. Take the example of surgical scissors as an example. The beneficiary, right? So is the person who actually gets benefit from usage of the product. So obviously, surgical scissor, beneficiary, patient, and physician. I would say mostly the physician because they're the ones trying to make the cut. I think in this example, they said the patient, but that's debatable. End user, person using it, in this case, the doctors. The decision maker, for example, it could be purchasing decision, could be the head of surgery. So just a different role somebody plays in the consumption of the product. The buyer, for hospitals, it's usually a buyer agent, could be a purchasing department. So somebody making the actual buying activity. We have the influencer. You can tell where I stole those slides from. It's from the Lab2Market Quebec team. So the influencer could be anybody, right? Could be the salesperson, could be a different physician. So anybody who actually has an influence in the decision making. So you need to identify and have a mitigation strategy for these people. Counselor could be somebody within the department. Once again, could be a salesperson. And lastly, a saboteur, person who will lose out that the solution is adopted, right? So let's say if I have a robot, I may not be interested to have somebody buy scissors. So saboteur is anybody who has a stake for the product not to be adopted. Lastly, the champion. So the person who has bought into the solution and can help you manage the buying process internally, right? So the champion will take steps to get everybody else within the institution on board to make the purchase. So exercise is identify who they are, have a strategy to either mitigate them or to enable them, such as a champion, to actually see the product being adopted. Let's see. Actually, let's skip this one, Amanda. That'd be easier. We'll skip this exercise completely.
Just a quickie, if we remember the value proposition video that we watched during boot camp, you get a pretty good idea of a lot of these rules and how to approach the conversations in your interviews.
All right, let's go to my favorite portion, even though I do like segmentation quite a bit, but market size, super important. One of my irks is that everybody comes back to me and says, my market size is $1 billion. And of course, my answer is, well, it's not. So don't tell me your market is $1 billion plus yet again. So very quickly, we'll take 10 minutes to finish that off before the break. So we talked about market size. In most startups, you'll see those 3 concentric circles, and then they're trying to represent the market that they're playing into, right? So the largest bubble is the total, what we call the total addressable market, right? So that's the constellation of all the potential customers that may be consuming the technology, right? So not necessarily your product, but could be consuming the technology, right? So let's take the electric vehicle, for example, right? So the electric vehicle market is obviously everyone, because well, minus those will never adopt, whatever that is. So all electric vehicles consumption market, that would be a total addressable market, okay? So that total addressable market is all potential customers of like products of that technology. Next one, some people call it sales addressable. There's different terms. So this considers some of the real world constraints that affect the size of your market. They can include geography, competition, or the restriction, right? So now you're essentially saying there are limits of potential people that could ever adopt an electric vehicle, right? So an example would be Nunavut, probably not going to be electric vehicle consumers anytime soon. So that's what that is, right? Total addressable is all the people that could potentially ever consume it. Sales addressable would be those that actually would have the ability to consume the market. So you further reduce the total number of people that could be served. And lastly, your target market. So essentially it's a smaller market than a sales addressable. And those would be people that fit the segment that is most desirable, most visible, and most likely to be an early adopter of your solution, right? So you're reducing laggards, reducing early majorities, and who are the people you're going to focus on directly. So total addressable, some people call sales addressable, some people call serviceable addressable, whatever terminology. So it's typically TAM, SAM, which is total addressable market, sales addressable, serviceable addressable market, and then your target market. So these are the three numbers that we're going to refer to, right? TAM, SAM, SAM, which is target market. How you estimate market size? There's many ways. You can do top down or bottom up. So top down is the easiest part, right? So let's say you play in the electric vehicle market. That one's easy. You just go online, you do Google search, you say electric vehicle market size, and you get tons of reports, and you use that, right? So that would be a top down. You get a available research. Somebody has done the research for you. They give you market size, and you use that. So that would be your top down. Bottom up is essentially you build from consumers, pricing of the price of the product, and then how much they buy it, and then it gives you a size, right? So top down is you use a number from research. Bottom up is you build it, right? So let's say if my market is Winnipeg, I think there's 875,000 people in Winnipeg. They buy one car every 5 years, and then it gives you a market size of Winnipeg. So that's kind of how you do it. Top down, by far the easiest. Bottom up, you just use some math and some heuristics to come up with a number. We talked about quickly, top down, begin with the broad statistics from a secondary source. Find data points to help break the number down, use statistics and data points from various sources, blah, 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 right? So top down, use market research that is available. Bottom up, you just build it. So there's an example of how you build it. Mohammed Ali, you had a question.
Sorry, yeah. My question is how we can evaluate our market size. For example, if we compare, for example, one market size from the other one, maybe they are too different. For example, one of them can sell to everyone, one of them has specific customers. So how do we have any method that we can compare and find out our market size is good or not, and these kind of things?
You know, it's a great question. And those numbers are references, right? They're not absolute. They're, to me, is the reference numbers, right? So if somebody says that give you an example, which I'm doing right now, I found one that says was $18 billion. And then a different company did research says was $25 billion, right? So 18 to 25, that's a huge number difference. I use 22 to say, I'm going to split the middle. So I wouldn't say don't spend too much time on the actual accuracy of the number. Spend time on the referral, what's the reference of that market size. Yes, Amanda?
Sorry, Muhammad Ali. So another
Oh.
thing to add to that, then it's great if you're able to ask that to our mentors during the mentor pool Q&A coming up as well.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, great question for the mentor. So yeah, so don't focus on the absolute accurate number of your total available market. Now, for the serviceable addressable market, that's where you have to make a decision, right? You can say, my product does not work in cities where the average temperature is, I don't know, pick a number, -20. Now, suddenly, there's a reason why your product or your technology is not amenable for whatever reason, right? So the SAM number is a decision within the team to say, what's the reach of my product, right? So I'm giving you the battery example, which is a perfect example. I bought Beats battery, I paid too much money for it, and I was shoveling snow last year, and the Beats would last 2 minutes. I returned them. I said, you know what? I live in Winnipeg. I'm not going to spend less than 2 minutes outside, right? So for that example, I would say cities of average temperatures of below 0, in the winter is not part of our market because the product does not work there. Now, suddenly you went from, 40 million Canadians to 10 million Canadians just by the fact that your product, for whatever reason, is not amenable to that, right? So don't spend too much time on accurate number, but spend more time on the justification to the size of the market. Because somebody's going to ask you, how'd you come up with that? Right? If I say it's 10 billion, so how'd you come up with 10 billion? Say, well, there's 10,000 hospital, the product costs an average $1,000. That's 10 billion, right? So spend more time on the reasoning behind the number and less about the number. Okay, does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? So we'll skip the exercise as well. But if you can see for your week 3 scrum, you do have to estimate your market, right? So I want all of you guys to, in the next several days, and then talk through with your mentors as well as with the facilitators during your office hours. You do absolutely have to size your market. Not sizing your market is unacceptable, right? Because you can tell me, hey, Henry, I got this fantastic new imaging device that's going to do X, Y, and Z. My first question is, okay, well, what's the size of the market? Because if you're serving a $1 million market, you're not going to find investors. And the reason I said the 1 billion is because the majority of investors today, if your market size is not $1 billion, they're typically not interested. So that's why people usually juice their market size to 1 billion, because that's really the number now that the investors have decided matters, right? So that's why the $1 billion. I was not being facetious just to be facetious, but it's true. 1 billion is really something that most investors, especially institutional investors, are interested. So you do have to size it because nobody wants to invest in a product that's going to serve, 10 people. So as soon as you define what your market is, the next question is, what's the size? And if they ask you what's the size, you have to be specific to say, is it your total addressable market or is it your target market? So those are the second thing, right? So I know we talked about segmentation. Yeah, this is good for you. But if you're going to talk to the world, they want to know the size of your market. I'm going to work on electric vehicles, and the market size is X. And if you don't provide that information, they typically don't pay attention beyond the size of the market if you don't give it, right? So we'll skip the exercise, but I want you guys to define your market and size your market and be specific. Is that your total addressable market, or is that your serviceable addressable market, or is that your target market? Okay? So today we covered defining your market, segmenting your customers, identifying a persona within the segment, finding out the different stakeholders within each of those companies, and make sure you have strategies and plans around all of those different stakeholders that are part of making a decision to purchase and consume the product. And then we spoke very quickly on sizing your market, right? So sizing your market, can do quick research, find a report that is available. Because if you guys spend, in 10 minutes, I can size any market. Great that I've been doing this for 20 some years. But if you go online, Google's an amazing tool, and especially now with ChatGPT, you can very quickly size any market that is defined. If you have a new market that is not defined, it gets a little bit more difficult. But any defined market, there are research reports available, and they'll typically give you a snippet, right? So if you go into the research report, they're usually about 90 pages, but they'll usually give you for free the summary, and the summary usually has the total size and then the growth trajectories. So that's usually free. Okay, so go online, get the information. So I want all of you to refine your segments and then size your markets and make sure you have that available to discuss with your facilitators at your office hours. So now, 15 new interviews by February 6th. And your target is that before session 2, you have 25 interviews conducted and in Innovation Within. All right. Any question, anything at all that we covered today, and also target for gold standard? Oh, look at that. Amanda added standards now, gold standard. I like that, gold standard. Get 25 before next session. No questions? Clear? All right. So if you have any additional questions, save it for the mentor, right? So we covered segmentation today, market size. Those will be fantastic thought provokers to ask questions to our mentors. All right, that's all I have. Dimitri, Amanda, anything before we close?
I think that we're ready for some lunch. As you're sitting through lunch, reflecting, put a couple of questions in your back pocket, ready to go for when the mentors come in. We realized last time that this is quite a lively group, so it's going to be a lot of great questions. And it'll be Rosalie who guides us through that as the MC. All right, have a good lunch, everybody.
And before we go for lunch, let's give Henry a big round of applause. Thank you so much. Enjoy your lunch. I'll put the timer on, and we'll see you back soon.
And then we can open it up to questions. So hopefully our ELs have questions for you today. If not, I will find some questions because we were talking all about market segmentation, customer segmentation today, and that is not my wheelhouse. So I definitely want to learn from someone who has some experience. So
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me today. And yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you all. I think I must have spoken with most of you at our little gathering earlier. Was it this week or was it, maybe it was last
2 weeks
week?
ago? Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's really exciting for me to be here and talk to you. I'm from the University of Manitoba's Science Innovation Hub. So I basically like helped facilitate basically, I tried to help students, faculty, staff develop kind of an entrepreneurial mindset, help them to harness that creativity, that amazing problem solving that they all have. And yeah, overall, it's been a lot of fun being here. So I run a lot of events, programming that helps to engage people in sort of developing that creativity, that entrepreneurial thinking, and also just connecting them student staff with the broader university community as well as that innovation ecosystem. Some of my expertise may have come from also being part of Lab2Market Prairies couple, I guess, not this past year, but the year before. So I did also go through this program as well, and I really enjoyed it. So that's kind of maybe also some of my expertise for you.
I think we do have one question for you around the Science Pitch It Day at U of M. And I think we talked about it this morning, and somebody had asked if you had an engineering background, if you could participate. Do you have the answer to that?
Yes. So if you have an engineering background, like if you're faculty of engineering, you will need to have some sort of science students to collaborate with. Unfortunately, just the way that our funding is structured, there has to be at least one science student on every team. So the primary applicant has to be a science student, but that we do encourage people from other faculties to make those connections with faculty of science students. We do also have an open house tomorrow. I'm kind of pitched it yesterday, and that can be a great opportunity for you to meet with some science students and actually perhaps join forces with one. So just
That's
a little
perfect.
plug there.
Perfect. Thank you. I see some of our other mentors are here. So, and I happen to know who some of them are. So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves. If you could put mentor beside your name, just so we can easily identify you this afternoon as we go through our discussion, that would be great. So Karine, I know you're here. Would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, your expertise, which I know is quite awesome. So I'll let you just share.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Rosalie. So my name is Karen Bado. I am a founder. Currently, just launched a platform myself, and it's just been an interesting journey as an entrepreneur. And prior to that, I've been working with business owners, entrepreneurs as a business consultant under Leader Tribe Consulting. And prior to that, I was also the venture coach at University of Manitoba, and that's how I was introduced to the Lab2Market program. I'm very excited to be here. Some of my area of expertise is financial forecasting, financial strategy, projections. I'm growing into having more marketing experience now that I'm an entrepreneur, learning different tools as well. So yeah, I'm excited to be here. Hopefully we'll have a very successful session
Perfect.
answering your questions. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, Wendy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Rosalie. Well, hello, everyone. This is not the first time we met, and just feel free to reach out to ask any question. My name is Wendy Yan. I'm the Senior Business Development Manager for Futurepreneur, which is a nonprofit organization to support young entrepreneurs. And actually, my background was, I had my bachelor degree in economics, master degree in management, and a PhD degree in marketing. So my expertise is in marketing research, market segments, like today's topic, and also marketing strategies, So and consumer behavior, consumer psychology, because at the end of the day, if you sell products to customers, no matter whether it's a business or individual customer, you need to know what they need, right? So it's important to understand the people's needs, psychological needs, and symbolic needs. And I have been teaching marketing courses at University of Manitoba and the University of Winnipeg. So Rosalie is familiar with this part of experience because she was the department head before. And and also working at a Futurepreneur, I'm also familiar with this ecosystem, especially how young entrepreneurs can get financing and support and available resources in this ecosystem. So yeah, like what I mentioned, if you have any question or need some support, feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Wendy. So Wendy really touches on a couple of those pieces we talked about today, is really that need analysis, right? Understanding that discovery journey, understanding what your customer needs, not what you want to sell them, but what they need. So as we do the rest of the mentor intros, think of some questions that you can ask these mentors around today's content. And also remember, you do have to have 3 mentor interviews over the next 8 weeks. So think about maybe who you'd like to reach out to after today's meeting and book an appointment with them as well, because it comes up fast. That 8 weeks will be over before you know it. So Anil, nice to see you. Would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Yes, thanks, Rosalie. Great to meet everybody here. So my name is Anil Sedha. I'm the founder of a couple of IT companies, Cloud Genie Corp, a cloud-focused organization, and a startup, Whistle.tech. So I've been in the IT industry for more than 23 years, worked from the trenches up to leadership positions, and then I've started to explore the startup ecosystem myself, where we've got a telecommunications based startup going. And I've had numerous conversations with Dimitri and a few others around our startup initiatives, including Rosalie, who's been part of Northfork. So the key experience areas that I try to focus on is just getting started, the challenges, the opportunities, go-to-market strategy. I'm still evolving ours, so I come from the perspective of experience, not from the perspective of expertise. So, and the other aspect is your technology solutions. So your cloud platforms, the subscriptions that you have to evolve in, the ecosystem that you should have for running a startup or doing something similar. So those are the type of areas I can talk to you about.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Anil.
Thank you.
I've had the pleasure of working with him over the last couple of years, and he's had some great successes and pitched to equity investors. So he's got a really great base of knowledge. So definitely tap into, like I said, these resources. All right, Atif. I've also had the pleasure of working with Atif. So Atif, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing.
Thank you, Rosalie. It's always a pleasure working with you and your team. My name is Atif. I work at Northforge as program manager. My background comes from startups. I've done startups in the US as well as in Pakistan, where I come from, and I have about 20 years experience working in startup world. I've helped other startups, mentored them, and taken them, helped them grow pretty fast in the past. And that's my strength, and that's what I bring to the table. So if you have any questions related to any issues you're facing or any obstacles you're facing, happy to listen to them and provide advice. At the same time, at Northforge, I'm also running a program called IP, Elevate IP. So in other words, if you want a trademark, if you want to file a patent, a design patent, if you want to do a trade secret strategy, come and talk to me. You can Slack me, you can email me, I'm available. Thank you. Rosalie, you were saying something.
Oh, no, I was just going to say you were missing all of this stuff about Elevate IP and all of your expertise in the IP world. And I do know that one of the people on my team, I think it was Garrett, and Garrett, I hope I haven't remembered incorrectly, had questions about their IP and how to protect themselves. So definitely tap into Atif's experience and expertise, because he can answer questions that I just wouldn't have the answers to. So thank you so much, Atif.
Thank you.
Nermeen.
Hello. Thank you, Rosalie. How are you? How are you, everyone? Thank you very much for having us with you. So my name is Nermeen Saad. I am working at Northport as a director for the Global Entrepreneurship. So basically, my background, I'm a mechanical engineer. I have master's in mechanical engineering, and now I'm proceeding for my PhD. I'm also a serial entrepreneur. I have two businesses in the Middle East. The first one is in the engineering sector, and the second one is an invention in the health care in the health the sector. And now I'm starting my third one here in Canada in the sector of safety driving. So I had the pleasure to work at Northport dealing with the startup visa program. It's a federal immigration stream where we invite tech startups from all around the world to come to Canada. We support them and provide them with letter of support so that they will be accepted to become a PR and later on a citizenship. So my strength point is that I've been working for years with global innovation through science and technology with the US. It's a US government competition, a yearly competition, where they go through all around the world in different countries, and they run regional competition for tech startups, science, STEM, in the STEM, in general, in the STEM. So I performed as a mentor and as a judge. So I have a really good exposure for international businesses and an international, markets. It's even my business itself. I have run it and I have branches in different countries. So this is my strength point. If you want to have any expansion, if you need any connections outside Canada, I am very good in that part. Plus, for sure, the components of any business in finance, in management. I have a little bit of everything. My first business I was a solo entrepreneur, and I can tell you that it was a really hard startup, but I went through everything. It was a really good learning experience for me. And I'm happy to be with you and happy to be reach out with whoever feel that I could add something to their business. Thank you very much, Rosalie and the Lab2Market team.
Thank you, Nermeen. I've had the pleasure of working with Nermeen for the last year and a half, and she's brilliant, and she brings to the table such great experience and knowledge. So definitely tap into that. And she's the only other one that I know I can, email at midnight and she'll probably respond. So I think we're the only ones that are working at these crazy hours. I think our last mentor is Ben Isakoff. I don't have the pleasure of having known you in the past, Ben, so getting to know you here. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Hello. Maybe you was actually fortunate to know me. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so yeah, it's a great group to be in. My name is Ben Isakoff. I'm with Stu Clark Center for Entrepreneurship, currently a startup coach. And what I bring to the table to our teams here, mechanical engineer, continuous improvement, quality assurance guy. Like, I'm a systems guy. So I own a business consulting firm, and what we do is we are streamlining the processes and building foundation for growth and scalability. So anything that you have a question on how to streamline a process, how to set up business functions so they will work well with each other, I can answer these questions and more. So yeah, please feel free to reach out to have a conversation. I'm not promising to answer my emails at 2 a.m., but 11 is about right for me as well. So anyways, so glad to be as part of this team.
Thanks, Ben. So we do have something in common. I did graduate my master's degree from Asper School of Business. So I have some experience with the program and had a wonderful time when I was there studying. So, okay, so here are our mentors for today. Did I miss anyone? I hope I've gotten all our mentors. Okay, so now it's your turn as ELs to, take advantage of these mentors. Any questions that you have related maybe to their area of expertise, or even this morning related to the topic material, hopefully you come with some questions prepared. So I'll open it up. Just put your hand up, and if no one wants to go, I'll come up with a question. Okay, Garrett. Thank you.
Hello. I had a question about how do you know where your market that you're looking into, your device is not suitable in, and maybe it's suitable in like another country's market. So like, is there any like tips and tricks that you have about, doing some market research in a different
Different country or different company?
country?
Yeah. All right. So we'll open it up to our mentors. Who would like to field that first question on? Yeah, Daniel, go ahead. Oh,
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And it actually kind of reminds me of when I was taking part in Lab2Market. I had something that was able to potentially help to decontaminate wastewater. So certain toxic elements that might be found in wastewater, including pharmaceuticals. And one of the things that I found in one of my customer interviews was I was talking to a couple experts from one of the water like safety consultants companies within Canada, and they mentioned that so one of the great things about Canada is we have like plenty of fresh water, and interestingly enough, because of all this fresh water, there's not a whole lot of regulations around it. But if you were to find another country's market, such as Australia or New Zealand, we could probably connect you with that. They have like much more strict water regulations. Everything that is basically going out needs to be purified like very well. So it actually one of the places you actually may find out about basically this question is actually through your customer interviews. So if you get to a chance to talk to organizations that are very involved, so any like regulatory organizations that might be involved in your product, it actually might be able to give you a nice introduction to perhaps this being a problem elsewhere, but not necessarily in your geographic area. So that's maybe my 2 cents on that.
Perfect. Wendy.
Yeah, well, I would say regarding the first question, he asked about how to identify where your market is, right? First, the question you need to ask yourself is that what your product or service can solve a problem. What kind of problem your product can solve? And who need to solve this problem? And do you think Canada needs, has this program? Does Canada have this problem, or some other countries are also facing the same problem? So if you're looking for some global market or some other organization who potentially need your product or service, the key question is, what your product or service can solve can find the solution for the existing problem. And that requires a lot of research. That requires a lot of research. And of course, after doing research, you probably find some results that, actually, in this country or that organization, they have a similar product or similar service or similar, solution. Then in that case, you also need to find out your value proposition. How can you differentiate your product from others' service? But another possibility is that you feel so excited to say, oh, actually, this place or this country has this problem, but they don't have any, the solution, or they don't have any organization who can provide this product. You feel so excited, and you probably feel, oh, I found the gap. I will go to the market. But be careful, because in that case, you also need to figure out why they don't have this product or service. Is that kind of a government regulation? Is that a kind of something restrict, this kind of industry development? So research is also important when for you to find the right market. Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. Anil.
I'll just quickly touch on a couple of aspects from a process standpoint. So first and foremost, every product for the most part can be sold everywhere else. So that's the concept that I kind of go with. The second aspect is when you are just getting started and you're not sure, there are certain services available to you, like the World Trade Center and a few others, including Northforge or even Lab2Market will have resources. Uh, the next aspect that I try to use is technology. So whether you use, for example, pure Google search and you use it with certain keywords, it's a specific way of framing your research that will help you understand which areas or which countries pop up in that list. I like to use Google Trends, for example, for a lot of my research. It helps me understand in geographical areas where it makes sense. The other or final aspect I would say is that LinkedIn is an excellent way to kind of capture a lot of information. You can sign up for, let's say, a free trial of Sales Navigator or something else, and then use certain specific targeted research, and you will know right away which areas, which countries you need to go in first because of where there is volume. Because it also depends on whether it is volume or less customers but higher revenue margin options. So there's this balance that you have to kind of adjust or juggle on.
Perfect, thank you. Nermeen, you had your hand up, so I don't know if there was something you wanted to add as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Ham. For example, in my business, in my job, I have to search the startups and the businesses that is accepted. So basically, I have to look internationally about the viability of this business first, and then I will discuss with Canadian experts such as Rosalie, just if this is valuable in Canada. So if you are in Canada and you have something in Canada viable and you want to do it the vice versa way. So the first thing, this is my advice, and this is what I'm doing. I go to, specific countries that I'm interested in, and I look for the very reputable and the high level incubators. And I register for all of their newsletters. It's a matter of 5 minutes per day that you spend just like to read what is there. You can see from the newsletters the latest trend in those countries. You can see what is the available, startups, the ideas, what is acceptable, what is what sometimes, as Wendy said, you can see the gaps. They have all these, why they don't have this category, and now you have another search topic. I just lowered my hand because Wendy answered my point.
Yeah, and in my experience as a North Forge entrepreneur in residence, this has come up a couple of times too. And I think Wendy, all of our mentors have made good points, but Wendy was saying, you do need to ask yourself, why isn't it working? Why isn't it already? If it's something that's internationally recognized already and has a market, why isn't it in Canada, or the flip of that, right? Sometimes it is regulatory, and I've seen a couple of things or ideas where there is a problem to solve, but the regulatory environment in a specific region doesn't allow us to implement the solution that works in other places. So you definitely want to make sure you do that research. And as Anil was saying, lots of information available. World Trade Center will do some market research for you. Resources through Lab2Market, resources through universities. All of you have university students and have access to university libraries that have lots of great research available to you, which is something once you get out into a non-academic environment is not as easily accessible. So take advantage of those things. So perfect, thank you. Anyone else have some questions for our mentors? So thank you, Garrett. That was a great question for discussion. Miriam, go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for the introduction about yourself. And my question now is, we are in the middle of reaching for customers. My question is how you handle the challenges of reaching a different or diverse segments, customer segments, and how you overcome that, and how the information that you got from the customer also change the segments of your customers.
Right. Do any of our mentors want to take that question? Miriam, do you have an example of what you mean by a diverse customer segment? Sorry, Anil, I'll come back to you in just a second.
Yeah. So for example, you will able, for example, to reach out specific segment, but not the others. Like it is hard, maybe the CEOs or like managers or like different companies, you can't easily go there. Or for example, if you're reaching out by email or LinkedIn for different companies from different countries, it is not easy to contact with them or to hear back from them.
Okay, so this is specific to your interviews now that you're doing as part of your discovery. Is
Yeah.
that correct? Okay, perfect. Thanks. Go ahead, Anil.
So first of all, there is no magic bullet. So I'll just straighten that out. We all live and learn. We all try various approaches. There are industry best practices like A and B tests and whatnot, just to kind of address these type of questions. But the way I have done specifically is I've just tried to do some research on certain sectors of the industry verticals that I feel, first of all, because when you have an idea, you are the most confident in that idea. So, and you understand it to some degree at least. So you just pick certain areas of the industry and then just kind of try to ping a few people first. I love LinkedIn networking, so I do that. And then once you reach out to those people, let them know during your connection request why you're reaching out to them. Don't just send a blank connection request. And then some people will actually respond and say, yeah, I'm available to help answer some questions in this space. And then that leads you to a little bit of more of a learning or an evolution of your thought process. Then you kind of just keep going from there. But you've got to just reach out to more people.
Oh, I think you're on mute, Rosalie.
Thank you. I'm not used to being so quiet. I'll start with Karine and then we'll go to Wendy.
Okay, that's good. I feel personally, I like the warm approach, right? Because some leads are easier than others. Like you say, you send your emails, people are responding, but then other target are a little bit more harder to connect with because the approach is cold. So what I find working for me is just looking at groups, whether it's a group on LinkedIn where they discuss like similar type of topic. It's really starting to engage, right? Just genuinely engage. And it comes from the fact that I agree with Anil, you understand the problem. Sometimes when you don't understand the problem, it's very hard for you to even go to someone and be like, hey, I want to ask. It's just out of the blue. But understand the problem, understand some of the pain points that revolves around the problem. Go into those forums or groups, whether it's Facebook pages. I'm telling that because I've tried it, okay? And you start commenting and you start engaging, and then people are just like, okay, wow, that person is here. And then you can start maybe slowly connecting off the public feed to DM the person. You also have to make sure that your profile is legit. Some LinkedIn pages, they just want pictures and then nothing. So make sure that either if you're using LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, you have a legit profile, you have a picture, you have a good resume out there that proves that people can actually trust who you are, that you're not just someone that looking to collect information. So those are the few tips that I can say. Maybe try something a little bit more naturally, like a warm lead, a natural conversation on some of the pages and try to see who is responding to that to now initiate the conversation.
And I agree with Anil and with Karine, like your approach certainly makes a difference, but there are also some people that are just not interested. They just don't want to. And you have to have a bit of a thick skin, like you're kind of cold calling here. And statistically, 1 in 10 will come back to you. So it is not a personal thing. It is a numbers game, unfortunately, to some extent. But anyway, go ahead, Wendy.
Yeah, thank you. Well, if I understand your question correctly, you are trying to figure out how to get into the new market segments, how to switch to a new market segments. Actually, simply speaking, it's a kind of rebranding, right? It's a kind of a rebranding because if your initial branding is towards a certain market segment, and now you try to go to a different segment that requires rebranding, and how to rebrand, you need to emphasize the difference. And of course, when you go to a certain segment, you don't need to talk about other segment. But if you are looking for some customer who already know your the original brands, you can also kind of like make sure the rebranding emphasize your new value proposition, and think about some global brand with different sub brands, right? So for example, P&G company, they have some category which are for babies, or some brands are only for like home decor or home housework, or some of the products are for different functions. So for each category, they have their own sub brand. If you want to convince the different segment to understand the new product or service, you can just use a different brand name.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Mohammed, you had your hand up earlier for a question. Do you still have a question for the mentors?
Yes, I do, and it's a perfect time. It's a kind of a follow-up to what Wendy said. I have this high-level question for all the mentors in here, and before I joined Lab2Market, I used to hear and read a lot about the entrepreneur has to have a vision, has to have like really loving the feelings about this product or serving this customer segment. However, once we have started doing the customer discovery and doing some interviews, I kind of like felt depressed, because I'm kind of like leaving my dream, my all of my thoughts before this, because I am hearing something new. I'm hearing something not I was thinking, right? And I cannot say no, tell me this, because here's the customer, here's the entrepreneurs like before you, and they tried this and it didn't work. So how do you deal with these feelings? Like you feel like you're disconnected from your dreams or from your internal motive.
I'm going to actually, Daniel, I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, but you've just been through Lab2Market not that long ago. Did you experience any of those things? And like, how did you get past that? Because I think this is that internal dialogue, right? That can really get in the way of doing those interviews.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I was like ready to put my hand up anyway, so that's perfect. Yeah. No, there are some interviews where you will walk away with and you're just like, you kind of slump in your seat and you just feel demotivated. And I mean, when it comes to entrepreneurship, doubt is a real thing. It's also like probably the number one killer of any idea. There comes a time where you have to, sometimes it's better almost be married more to the problem than it is to be married to the solution. That's the thing that you should be most passionate about sometimes, because sometimes if you have all these customer interviews, you will have an opportunity to actually hear about what the biggest problem for them is and see if you can fit your solution into there, or if you can find another solution. So sometimes I would leave a lot of these meetings where I would feel kind of demotivated about the solution that I had initially, but then have like a bunch of other like things that they've mentioned, like, oh, here's all these different problems, and you can start to like get really excited about, oh, well, yeah, like this is an interesting problem that they have. Perhaps I can lend my like just like explore this a little bit. Or sometimes you do leave those meetings where you actually get to have the opportunity, you still feel married to your solution, that's where you can start to pivot, and pivots are something that you can absolutely celebrate. Like, there's nothing wrong with if one group is like very recalcitrant or resistant to your solution, maybe they already have a lot of solutions available to them. You can pivot, and perhaps you will find a customer segment that will be extremely excited about the solution. And when you do find that customer segment that's very excited about that solution, you're more likely also to get a lot of interviews. You're going to have more success when you actually understand the problem that they're facing more and how your solution can actually help them. So it is extremely common, especially at the beginning of Lab2Market, I would say, for you to feel very confused, a little bit demotivated, and kind of get that healthy dose of reality. But it is not something you should feel too worried about. As time kind of goes on, you kind of starts to get a lot more understanding of what your solution is, how what the problem is, and also how you can actually kind of bring together your solution and your problem to kind of connect the dots there. So completely understandable. I've been through that, and I think that the majority of people who go through Lab2Market kind of have that confusion, but or that kind of, again, that dose of reality almost. But don't let that sow too much doubt in you either.
I think it's part of the entrepreneurial journey, right? I think it's not Lab2Market specific. And I think it's also a necessary part of understanding your market and that whole discovery process. So, you know, hang in there. It does get better, and you will get, it is hard to hear sometimes that people either don't like your idea or don't agree with your position. You've vested all this time in it. But that's also important work, or it's important feedback to hear. So, Ben, I'd love to hear your thoughts too.
Okay, so it was nice that you volunteered Daniel, and Daniel loved what you said about marrying to the solution, right? I feel that many STEAM, especially STEAM or entrepreneurs in general, are failing because they are married to the solution and not to the problem. Somebody once told me, and I continue repeating it all the time, fall in love with the problem and not with the solution, right? Now, doubt is a big portion of being entrepreneur. You will self-doubt, people will doubt you all the time. But what I would like to highlight in here, this step of the process, when you go and do your market research, is the purpose of this step is to validate the idea. And if you are getting a negative feedback, people don't like your idea, right? It can be like either the idea is not worth to solve, a problem is not worth solving, right? There are plenty of other available solutions out there, or maybe your segment, like Daniel said, is not the right one to ask for, right? But if you are validating the idea with the right segment, you get some information about some other solutions out there. You can pivot into something else. And think about it this way. You are in the beginning of the process before you are vastly invested in it with your time, energy, and money, right? You'd better find out that the solution is not working now and not in a year and a half when you are like deep in the trying to figure it out how to sell it. Okay? So don't be discouraged. You are on the mission to validate the idea, to find it, be critical. People reject it, ask, great, thank you so much. Why do you think it's not a good solution? And get the feedback. Get like that's your opportunity to validate the idea and to get better.
That's really good advice. And I think sometimes we feel like if somebody tells us our idea isn't a good one, it's like them telling us our baby is ugly. And, you know, but that's not what it is. And so, you know, not getting so personally invested. I do know in the Scrum sessions today, and having spoken with some of my team members, some of you are wanting to already go sell a product. We're not even close to that yet. You have to figure out first whether or not your product actually even fulfills a need. So instead of telling your interviewees that you've got this great product, figure out what your interviewee needs. And that is very much what these conversations should be focused on. Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to something that you said about the problems, right? We have many problems out there, but not all of the problems are worth solving, and not every problem your potential customer will want to pay you to solve the problem, because the solution is going to be more expensive than having the problem. So that's exactly another thing. So when you check out the desirability of the solution, you try to gauge if people will pay money, to solve the problem that you are getting, to eliminate. So that's kind of addition I wanted to add here.
That's a really good point. Somebody once said it to me like this. So you're on a road trip. Imagine you're on a road trip and you need to stop and go to the bathroom. And you go, okay, well, I'm 100 kilometers away from the next gas station. I'm sure I can wait. Well, so you're getting closer to the gas station, but now it's more urgent. I need to go now. And, you're going, oh, maybe I can't wait for that gas station. And pretty soon it gets to be so urgent that it doesn't matter where you are, because you'll pull over to the side of the road and you'll just make use of whatever you need to make use of. So it's this kind of this urgency that is related to the problem. If the problem is a mild annoyance, people may not be willing to even consider that solution. If the problem has a sense of urgency to it, urgency can come from different places. Legislation, so I do work in the tech space as well. We work with a founder who's actually looking at coming up with a tech solution for capturing carbon offsets and carbon credits as part of the audit process. Well, is that a nice to have? Maybe it's a nice to have, except that now in the US, the SEC is saying, hey, we're going to put a regulatory process in place. And you're going to have to, it's going to be mandatory within the next few years that you have to report on this. So something that was a nice to have suddenly becomes mandatory reporting. Now there's an urgency, right? So what is a nice to have versus what is urgent? So anyway, I'll stop talking. I'll let it go back. And Neil, you had some good advice there too. You put it in the chat. Did you want to share it with, because sometimes not everybody reads the chat.
Sure. So, and this has happened to me personally, so I'll tell you this coming from experience. At the end of the day, the business is your baby, right? It's your life, it's your professional journey. Sometimes we start off with an idea and we are not too sure about that, right? But the conviction has to be there. So when you're not sure, what happens? You are like fearful. Oh, should I share this with others? Should I even ask this question? What would be their response? So I learned this. You've got to become fearless to the point where I have personally thought really wild with my ideas, where I've gone to the extreme and said, this doesn't ever exist in the world, but I'm going to build it. That's fine, because that's the learning that you kind of get into, and maybe we can build the next big thing. And I'm working on something that doesn't exist today in the world, in the entire world, and I'm working towards doing something there. So all I say is that it's our journey. We learn and we evolve. We get to a certain milestone. Sometimes we exceed our own expectations, but we don't exceed our own expectations until we think fearlessly. So, and at the end of the day, just like Ben also said, if you don't pivot in time, you're over investing sometimes financially also. So better to kind of start putting some milestones in place in your own mind, saying that, okay, this is where I should be by now. And if you're not, then is it the right path? And are you still having 100% conviction?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. All right. Do we have some more questions for our mentors? Dimitri, that is the most disturbing avatar, I have to tell you. Like, he's completely distracted me. Sorry. So anyway, any more questions from our ELs here? Muhammad Ali.
Yes, thank you so much. My question is regarding market size that we learned some part of it today. So where I have to start to evaluate my market size, and can I, for example, use, because for up to now, I don't have any, real product. I just worked on it and reached some points that I think I can solve some problems. But to sell it and to make some price for it and the rest of the process, so how I can evaluate this market size, and can I use, for example, similar products market size, or how I can do it?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. How big is this market for this potential product? And I think that's a very valid question to have early on as well. So I'm going to leave it open to our mentors. Who would like to respond? Thanks, Wendy.
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. That's a very, very good question because for any business owners or startups, they need to predict the sales forecast. And some startup they just feel, oh, I haven't sold anything. How can I know, who need my product, right? This is a very solid question, but that's why we need an assumption. We need a sales forecast assumption. So in order to understand your market size, it's always important to think about what your product, who need your product, who is your target market, who is your target market? That's the number one question. Who is your target market? You couldn't say that, oh, everyone may have use my product. That's not the right answer because the target market usually is, who really think your product is important for them. Maybe you develop a very innovative and high technology product that you targeted at a global company, the big company. But you also need to do research and maybe find a person to ask the question, do you need a new innovative product since their company already has established a system? Right? So in that case, maybe the global company or big company, not large company, they are not your target market, but some small and medium-sized business or company. And in that case, after you identify your target market, what kind of a business, what kind of a company who need your technology, who need your product or service, then the second step is to calculate or do some research in Canada or in North America, how many, in each state, in each province, how many this size company or business there are, and you get a total number, right? But not everyone would like to buy your product. So you also need to think about a percentage. Not the percentage is not, you think about it, but also, do some research and also do some interview. And for example, you will do interview to 20 companies, this kind of similar kind of a business. And within this 20 business, only 5 said yes or maybe. That means only 1/4 are willing to use your product. So in that case, you use mathematics to calculate, your market size. Okay.
Thank you, Wendy. Go ahead, Karine.
Yeah, like I think that's a multifaceted type of question, very high in financials and marketing. But I agree. I think Rosalie did say something like the barrier to entry will probably where you will have more clarity, right? If you're building a specific prototype or something that you think have an easy entry to a specific country, I think that'll probably be where you will want to launch. It really depends. Some industry, let's say if it's pharmaceutical, if it's legal, then in North America there's a lot of regulations. Also depending how you plan to fund your business. Hypothetically, if you're looking at North American investors, you probably will want to start with North American target segment. And the thing is, there's always a possibility to expand, right? Like once you have that niche of who will be your early adopters in what country, because you're building a case. So on top of doing your customer validation, you're also looking at regulation. You do a SWOT. I don't know if you guys already started doing SWOT analysis, but maybe that's the right way to go about it, because you want to look at your industry per countries. Let's say if you want to divide it geographically, you look at industries per country and you analyze the strength, the weaknesses, threat, and you almost pick the best country with the more opportunities and the less regulations and the customer that wants the product. So there's definitely a little bit of complexity here, but I'll say for the sake of the program, just focus on finding people who wants the product, who will be your early adopters, and target that demographic geographically, and try to see if there was also alignment with regulations to facilitate that.
Yeah, thanks, Karine. So Karine's what she's really talking about. So SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths and weaknesses are you internally, your company. What does that look like? Opportunities and threats are really that external marketplace. And we haven't really talked about sort of the secondary research market. So you can think about what you guys are engaging in right now is primary research. You're getting out to that customer and you're just trying to figure out if the customer has a need and you've got something that can solve it. So I really do like, Ben's, and Daniel's perspective of be in love with the problem. Don't be in love with the solution. What is the problem you're trying to solve? Is it an urgent problem? Or is it just an irksome problem that maybe people aren't interested in solving? And that, that is really where you want to be focusing on. Those other sort of external pieces like that market opportunity, that market segment, the size of that, that'll come down the road. And that'll be that next phase of it. And, I'll talk a little bit in my session about something called a pestle, which is really how you might go about doing an industry and a market scan. So we'll come back to those, but that really isn't the focus of what you want to do for the next 8 weeks. What you really want to do is you really want to figure out what your hypothesized, customer segments, whether or not they are who you think they are, and whether or not they have the problem you think they do. Because if they don't, then why are you doing what you're doing? So those are really those pieces that you want to think about. I think we have time maybe for one more question. We've got a couple of minutes left. So does anybody from our EL team have another question for our mentors? No questions? Everybody's got all their questions. Thank you, Minga. Go ahead.
Hello, thank you for coming. And actually, I have one question about my customer segment. And my product is air purifier. So I suppose maybe some patients with like they are allergic to something or like the asthma, they may need this product. But one thing is maybe you know the illness is private, so I cannot I cannot know who has the disease. So how to solve this problem, or do I need to keep this segment? Thank you.
That's a really good question. So do our mentors, does anybody maybe have some experience in a similar market where you can't really ask somebody if they're your target customer, and how do you get the info? Thanks, Anil. Go ahead.
So I'll take a practical consideration to this. So when you don't know something, you could go to a group that actually manages that segment. For example, there just like there's National Association for the Blind, there's National Association for the Deaf, there's medical groups that are directly tied to allergies, asthma, and whatnot, and they may be willing to let you talk to their select clients or whoever that they deal with, and this could be for a study, for example, and that's how you kind of start learning about what their challenges are. Then you go back to industry tools. This is where I try to bring technology every time. There are actually technology tools on Google search and trends and whatnot, which will guide you. And again, Lab2Market, Northforge, and others can help you understand how to capture that essence of the market, where you can actually know, for example, how to run targeted ads to have people fill up with a survey form. Now, when they start responding, you start learning about them, and then you kind of use that as a trending pattern to then keep going deeper into your market and start capturing the market more. Hope that
Perfect.
helps.
Thanks, Anil.
Thank you.
Henry, I know you're not a mentor here, but I know you've got a lot of experience in the medical world. Do you have any suggestions in this space on how to get information around specific groups that may have a medical need and trying to get that kind of information?
Yeah, like I always do research first, so online. So you'd be surprised how much information is actually documented. And like I tell people, the medical space is the most research space. So any disease, There's actually randomized controlled trials documented about pretty much anything that you can find. That's one. And then two, you ask the specialist directly, ask the doctors. They can point you to the right direction. Because, you know, to my knowledge, and I've done so many space cardiology, neurology, there really isn't a disease that has not been studied, documented, and researched in the medical space. So most of that information is available online. Some stuff you may have to pay for it. Some of those papers you may have to pay for it, but yeah, I don't think I was ever stuck not finding information about any disease. Sometimes it may be difficult to find market size, but you can always estimate those as well as far as market size. But patient population, that's yeah, there isn't anything that I couldn't find in my 25-year career in medical space.
And I think too, you guys all belong to academic institutions. If you go to your library and say, hey, I need to access this, they might be able to find that research or even be willing to pay for that research paper for you and to bring it in. Because I know that our library has a budget for those kinds of things. So just something to think about. I'm going to go to Wendy and then I'll come back to you, Ben.
Yeah, thank you. And regarding the question, you know, if the audience or if the target market are a group of people who cares about their privacy, right? If you are looking for some survey or get some feedback or get some information from them, I think it's still possible to launch a kind of like a survey or a questionnaire online. And also, you need to emphasize that everything is autonomous. So you can emphasize this kind of research or information collection is for research, is only for research, and it's anonymous. So their information will not be public, and it will be just to help the research work. And also, when you launch this kind of survey or information, you can just let them know this would be some information regarding, you know, what kind of specific problem. And if you have this kind of experience, that will help the researcher to do kind of like a great work to impact the community, to impact the world. And if it's possible, you can also provide some reward, such as, you know, kind of a gift card, this and that, to motivate people to participate. But the key is to let them know it's anonymous.
Thank you. Ben, I think you've got the final word for the mentor pool this afternoon.
Well, that is an honor. No, I just wanted to say that if any of the people in the teams are students of UFM, we had a great webinar with a librarian exactly about that, like what are the resources that are available for you for the secondary market research. I'll put a link into it for this webinar recording on chat right now. Please feel free to check it out. Tons of great resources that are available and nobody knows about it. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say.
Thank you so much. So thank you to everyone. It is like 1 minute to 2. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I think Dimitri may have 30 seconds of parting words at the end of our first day here in our core program. But thank you so much to our mentors. Thank you for your time. And this is just invaluable information that you share with us, your experiences, your expertise, and we look forward to having more engaging and interactive conversations over the upcoming weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, mentors.
Okay, Dimitri, final words, parting words?
Mentors are released, and actually I have a few minutes that I will require for these final words. So anybody who's in the facilitator category who wants to hang around for a bit, they can. If you have things to get to, you can go, but I'm going to just throw a few announcements out quickly.
I'm going to say bye. Bye, everyone. See you next week.
All right. Share a screen. Let's share this screen. All right, I try to keep it light here. All right, so our CRM challenge has come to an end. And we decided that, you know, because some people may have some dietary restrictions or may not choose to want to spend all their money on food, we're going to give you a choice between a Tim Hortons card or an Indigo card. So if you want to buy some reading materials or a gift for that special someone, or if you want to just go out and socially connect with people, you have a choice now. So we'll give you that choice. Amanda, do you want to say something maybe about how that will happen?
Sure. So we'll be emailing, or sorry, we'll be on Slack, we'll be messaging each of the ELs individually just to let you know if you've received whatever total amount. And then we'll just ask you for a preference of gift card if you prefer Tim Hortons or the Indigo Chapters gift card. So that will be next Monday. We're going to be emailing them out to you. I'll double check in Slack to see if you prefer it emailed to your Gmail address or to your university email address. And then once you receive it, we'll send the messages to let you know that we've sent them out. And we do just have a form that the U of M requires just to say that, yes, I have received it, where you sign and date it. And then we're just going to have that available for you in your team folders.
Very good. Okay, so the university needs to know that actually you got the money and not someone else. Well, that's great. We talked about this morning. The 3K Science Spark Pitch. I have that QR code there again. I encourage you, whether you're on the fence as to whether you're going to participate or not. It's a good event for the science students. It's a good event if you can pair up with someone. Best way, if you're not a science student, is to contact Daniel, and he'll be accommodating and trying to find a way how you can kind of benefit from participating as well. Or you can join forces with somebody on one of the other ELs here in this cohort. Possibly another student that you know outside of this cohort as well. Back here again. So the open house is tomorrow between 2:30 and 4. Good opportunity to come and just learn a little more about that, learn more about our science department. Obviously, if you're not physically in Manitoba, this is kind of just for some of the students here. Just so happens that you fly in tomorrow, that's great. You're welcome to join us. This is one that's coming up around the bend, April 18th to 20th, but they have a deadline for application February 20th. A little more robust of a pitch competition. As you can see there, the prizes are $20,000 for first place, $10,000 for second place. We've had some people from our Lab2Market program participate in this pitch competition as well. So you should be able to prepare yourself through the course of this program for that pitch as well. And I know that there's some favoritism right now, a little bit in the sense that, you know, I shouldn't say favoritism. They'd like to see a few more people from our program pitching in this competition. So there might be a little bit of an edge during the selections process as to who some of our students getting in. So a lot of exciting stuff happening in this cohort with you guys. I'm sure they would love to see some of your big ideas make it into this pitch competition, and we'd love to see some of us represented. This is not just for our students here at University of Manitoba, it's a national, international pitch competition. So if you would like to compete and you want to use some of those, I'm not sure if we can use those discretionary funds to get here because it's in April, but possibly, let's talk about that along the way. Either way, it's a good trip to take to Winnipeg for this competition, and it's a great experience. Lots of learning that happens during that weekend as well, and during the process, because there's a lot of things that you'll learn. Ben Isikoff will definitely support, because he's the venture coach along the way with preparing for this and how to present your materials and so on. Here's a couple of events that are this week. January 31st, tomorrow, between 5 and 7 at Innovation Drive. So this is a physical event. There will be this, I can't read it right now because it's not big enough for me, but it's a women's entrepreneurship event. If you want to learn more about that one or the one that's online for free, which is on Tuesday, February 6th on intellectual property for entrepreneurship, what you need to know if you want to listen to another expert, take that QR code there. And the QR code actually takes you to the North Forge events page. So there's about 6 events around the corner that you might want to take note of. some of them in manufacturing and prototyping and some building and some other things that are there. And some really kind of interesting programs that are being introduced. So take that QR code with your phone, take a peek. All right, next one. Founder Fridays, this Friday between 3 and 5 p.m. at the Smart Park Innovation Drive on the 4th floor. We get together with other venture entrepreneurs or into entrepreneurs from all sorts of places, and we just kind of hang out, we talk, we mix it up. It's a mixer. Usually there's a presenter of some sort. This time it's me. I'm going to be doing an introduction to our pilot community building program, which is more of a fun gathering. So we're going to be doing a founder, what did I call it again? Man, I forgot the name of it. Anyway, Founder Games, that's it. Founder Games is going to be introduced for the first time. We're doing a startup nights trivia night, an activity there. That's one of the 7 activities that we're going to have in that community building approach, where people just gather, socially connect, find talent, find each other, find founders, mix and match with all sorts of levels of entrepreneurs. So this is the humble beginnings in partnership with North Forge. We're going to expand beyond that, beyond the provincial borders as we go, and try to include more and more people in that activity. So tomorrow, if you have some free time and you're on campus, come by at 3. Usually they serve up a beer or something like that and some refreshments. It's kind of a social time and a time to just connect together face to face. Key activities that I want you to kind of pay attention to. Okay, take a breath, shake your head. All right, so these are the things that we are looking at on a weekly basis for you to try and do. Okay, this will keep you moving forward, moving the needle every week. First of all, use your checklist to stay on track. And I don't mean just use them. I would like you to start checking the boxes. Why do I say that? Because when you check the boxes, it eliminates all sorts of wasted communications and conversations, because your facilitator, myself, other people can check on your checklist and find the things that we need to talk about, not talk about everything. So please check off things as each week as they are being completed, indicating to us that you don't need to talk about those things as much. And so we can move on to the things that you do need to talk about. It also kind of keeps you us knowing what your progress is. Be diligent with adding names to your CRM, 100 per week. That is the gold standard, as Amanda would say. And that means that is the goal if you were running a campaign of some sort. Anything in that direction is also celebrated. So you do your best to get that, to reach that goal each week. Be diligent with adding names. 10 or 15 interviews per week is what we're hoping for a result. Right now we are focusing on the CRM and interview part. What'll happen is the interviews will start coming, and then they'll start to accelerate as we move through the program, as long as you're diligent with your CRMs. And invitations. Okay, schedule your interviews, conduct your interviews, publish your interviews so that we can see them as well. We can have some idea of where you're at, some feedback. We can talk about some of the things that we see, and analyze your interviews, adding, you know, your stuff into the business model canvas and innovation within, and then working with the program so that you can validate, seek out insights, look for patterns, and iterate, change your hypotheses so that they are they represent the learning that you're getting from your customers and your conversations. If at some point you feel, oh my God, I need to pivot, and you're feeling a little shy about it, talk to your facilitator, talk to us. We will probably celebrate a pivot, especially if it's done based on data that you are looking at. So don't be afraid to pivot. Don't be afraid to ask for that moral support as you do it. Self-report your outreach metrics using the online form every Monday night. That is helpful to me. It is helpful to the provincial program. It is helpful to your facilitator. It's the metric that we want to kind of keep in view so that we can report on it and we get funding for our program. We continue to have wonderful people joining us and so on. So government relies heavily on certain metrics and things that we report at the end of each cohort. Prepare your slide decks to report your 2-week sprint. Okay, so from boot camp till today, there were 2 weeks. That's called a sprint. Then you prepare your presentation for those 2 weeks, letting us know how did it go during those weeks? What were some of the successes? What were the wins? What were some of the blockers? What were some of the things that you want to bring up and discuss? So we are now starting a new 2-week sprint from today. So next week you won't be doing you won't be preparing a slide deck because you're going to be having a scrum without a presentation. Your facilitator will guide that roundtable discussion. But the following week, that's when you'll go into your team folders, grab your scrum template, and you will report on this sprint. So there's probably, I think there's 4 sprints. In the middle, we have an extra presentation. And at the end, it's the final presentation. So it's not a scrum at the end, it's a final presentation. But every 2 weeks, we're reporting in some way, leading and culminating into a final presentation where you're gonna shine and let us know. Those final presentations are the ones that can be then mirrored and duplicated for a lot of these pitch competitions. We're just happen to be lucky that we have 3 or 4 of these pitch competitions coming up. Lots of cash to grab at. We don't always have them line up like this. Any hackathons that are coming around the bend, any webinars online that I think are valuable, any events that are happening in person or online, we are going to try and share those on a weekly basis. A lot of times when you're in those, you actually get some referrals as well as some learning happening. Attend all your meetings. Okay, so these are things that are going to keep you successful every week. So the one meeting that's really key and important, do never miss, is your facilitator's office hours. Make sure that you're connecting with that facilitator on a weekly basis or rescheduling as needed to make sure that that happens each week. Drop-in support times. This is an optional meeting. The other one was mandatory. Amanda and myself turn on our Zoom for 3 hours and we hang out. People drop in. We make ourselves available for any kind of conversation around either content or logistics around this program. Anything that might be, sometimes it's just a heart-to-heart. So come and drop in during those hours. We are happy to see you. You are not bothering us. That's what it's set up for. Mentor one-on-ones. You must book 3 before session 8 and complete those sessions. Make sure that you're intentional. Pick people you want to talk to, people that are going to be useful to you, people who are going to provide the right information. Sometimes they are one of your interviews because they happen to be a person who's a subject matter expert or has been in the industry or is in the industry that you're targeting. So get those booked and worked on. You can do more than 3. If you feel you really love talking to the mentors, so I'll talk to them 10 times if you want to. It's up to you how much you utilize that expertise. You notice how well-versed they are in being able to support the questions that you're asking. Text transfer manager. So I don't know if we identified which one belongs to who yet, but we'll let you know if we haven't. I think Amanda's probably on the ball and maybe has already done that. For February, you need to talk to one of the tech managers in the Manitoba Tech Transfer Office, a general conversation. What they will then recommend is the option, that's the mandatory meeting once. Then in March, you can choose to talk to the same tech manager or one that belongs to your university. If you want to continue the conversation, you have some more specific questions. It is important to connect with your tech transfer managers because they're the ones that you're going to have to talk to at some point. And we have tons of people who can advise, but you want to connect with your office as well. My tax funding. Okay, question mark, big question mark. So far, last time I checked, my tax, the money has left them, is now en route or has arrived at the financial department, research finance department, whatever they call them at your university. And basically they disseminate those to the bank accounts of your technical leads. I don't know the timing of that, but I would ask that you also support this process by checking in with your technical lead and asking about it, getting them to check with their universities and seeing where it's at. That's how you'll get answers. I'll keep asking as well. Universities and my tax are notorious for making us wait. And so I'm not going to apologize. I know that we know that. I'm letting you know ahead of time. It may come next week. It may take a little while. It depends on how people, if there's any wastes in the system and how many desks this thing has to land on before it gets to you. All right. That's all I have, folks. Take note. And I think it's time to release you. Good luck this rest of this week. and have fun while you're doing this. If you're not having fun, then you're not doing it right. And yes, it's a lot of work, but if you chip away at it on a daily basis, you should be able to get through this. And by the time you get to the end, the one thing you're going to say is, wow, that was a great experience. And look at the network of people that I have now as assets moving forward. You want to be able to have those things as a win by the end. All right, that's it. You are released. We will see you next.
Everybody, great job tonight.